I like it when you're telling me what to do, Igor.
Ooh.
Forceful, aren't you? You can be.
I'm quite gentle teller. Here we are, another Monday, another episode.
Yes, it's Tuesday, Igor.
No, it's Monday. It's Monday for everybody.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm with you. Yeah, sorry. It's just
Come on, Sam, get with the program.
The weeks are a blur at the moment, aren't they?
It's true.
But yeah, we're up and running. We're rolling.
Yeah.
What do you want to say? What have you got to tell us, Igor?
Well, first of all, let's talk about the last few episodes.
Yeah.
They were absolutely incredible. The fact that, yes, Jess and Ben, they were absolutely amazing. But having an audience here...
Does this feel like we're cheating on Tom a little bit? He's sat here. It's like Tom's here in front of us and we're going, let's talk about other people.
I mean, to be fair, they do sound more interesting than me. It's fine.
No, but it's just kind of like a little recap of the fact that we had an audience here, and
yeah, it's a lot quieter today.
It is. Sorry, Tom.
It's
the
okay.
energy's different.
It's okay.
But we still vibe. Do not worry.
Yeah.
Keep it chill. I like it.
It was cool, wasn't it? I think the one thing I think it did surprise me. I didn't know what to expect people would take from it. But the big thing that I noticed talking to people when they left was how much they were just inspired by hearing the conversation.
The value
and I know
brought.
people I hope people are inspired by just listening to it on the podcast, but being here in person, I don't know if it just gave it like another layer of...
It's another level.
Yeah, just kind of them getting to see the behind the scenes of it and what goes into it. I don't know if they just appreciated it maybe a bit more than...
Yeah.
Maybe we just take podcasts for granted a little bit.
Yeah.
I'm not knocking people for listening to the podcast and not appreciating it, but appreciate it.
But I think as well, it's the amount that people learned outside of the pod
Yes.
Structure, really, that was so obvious, and the feedback that we got from it literally straight away was incredible, really. Just sitting down, the conversations that were being had, how you're growing, how's your business going, have you thought of this, what about that?
Yeah, we did a little breakout shoot as well, which was great.
Yeah, people got some headshots, shot some film as well, and the Q&A again. The Q&A was...
Yeah, I really, like from our point of view for the podcast, I really saw the benefit of having people in here, just being able to ask a couple of questions. The questions were great.
Yeah.
Just gave another layer of whatever it is to the episode.
Just a layer of depth, really, and people could, and relatability, really, because you guys, the audience, after hearing an episode, I'm sure that your head will be spinning and trying to think of how can I implement this, how can I do that, can you go deeper into this specific point?
Yeah.
So it was great for that, really. People were able to really hone in into specific things.
I think we're going to do another one, aren't we?
Oh, we definitely are.
I think we're doing... can we say Christmas? I think we're going to do a Christmas episode, aren't we? So we're going to we don't even know it's coming in yet.
No, we don't know, but
we're going to sort it out.
It's a given.
Merla's next door sorting out the structure of it and a few little behind the scenes things that are needed to get the event up and running. But that's the next thing.
Yeah.
I just loved it. I left buzzing about it last week. And
so
great.
Thank you to the audience that came, and for the future one that coming, we cannot wait to meet you and see you, because again, this is the point. It's just great to build community and like-minded community. People that want propel forward, propel together, and I think we could have a whole episode just on this. So
Igor, how much do people need to just share the podcast and just give us a little bit of a plug?
I said to Sam, I've got a grad with the audience. I've got telling off.
Come on, Igor.
No, it's just the fact that we see so much being shared on Instagram and stuff, which is great, especially after last week, which was absolutely amazing. But at the same time, we really would appreciate, we really want to see more reviews on Apple Podcasts and ratings. That's amazing, because the numbers are there. We can see it in the background.
They're definitely there.
We know that you guys are listening. You are listening. We know where you live. No, so we know
Jesus Christ.
we know that people are there.
We're all having nightmares tonight.
And Spotify, can you like on Spotify? I don't think you can. So
I think you can love Heartic.
Yeah. And YouTube, that's a massive one.
We
as
will
well.
come to you in a minute, Tom. Don't worry.
I mean, I do feel a little bit like chopped liver,
Yeah,
but that's just normal.
We will be with you in a moment.
We're just doing the admin. Just
I mean,
cleaning.
you've had an exciting week. I get it. Don't worry about
just
it.
let Igor have his moment.
Yeah.
I think the point he's getting to, and I'm going to kind of bring it in as well a little bit, is that a share for us is absolutely enormous. We can't for a second underestimate just how important and how valuable it is.
And we are so grateful for the ones that we get.
We're not Stephen Bartlett. We haven't got millions of followers. We don't have people on here that have got an audience of 500,000. It just doesn't. That's not us.
Yeah.
So actually, just you sitting at home or in your office listening to us now, if you can just screenshot the episode or our Instagram feed and tag us and put us on your story, just do it now. Just get your phone out, screenshot it, put it on Instagram. Just tell people that you're listening to it. Like that for us is enormous, and it just helps us grow as a brand, because we don't want to not do this. We want to carry on doing it.
Oh yeah.
And if we're going to carry on doing it, it's got to grow.
Yeah.
So please share it. Thank you to anybody that does share it.
Yeah, that's it.
We do see them all, and we really appreciate it. So
see my smile.
I think we've made our point there. Should we move on?
Definitely.
Yeah.
Badum-tsh.
Go on then. You bring him in.
Here we are. So this is another idea. We're a podcast for creative entrepreneurs that want to see their business level up. And
we do that by bringing guests on board, don't we?
Yes. And today we have the amazing Tom Wright.
There's no confetti for you here this week, Tom. I do apologise. Well, there is a bit of confetti. There's a few remnants.
Right by
there you go. There's a little bit of confetti by your foot.
It's like glitter as an adult, right? It just gets everywhere. You just can't. There's not getting that in the carpet.
I mean, it was a week ago, and I'm still finding glitter and confetti just knocking about the office.
I think it'll last for a while.
Maybe on the Christmas episode we'll rethink the confetti.
Imagine wedding venues now, how annoyed they get at all confetti has dropped by.
Yeah, straight away I was like, I can see why they're miserable sods.
But yes,
it turned me. I was furious.
How to make friends with the coordinator, right there.
Yeah,
miserable sods.
It was my bloody idea. I was like, Igor, I've got this confetti cannons. Let's do it. It'd be great. And then instantly
into your
thought,
coffee and everywhere else.
I mean, I can just imagine Igor sitting there like, yeah, you do that.
Yeah,
let's see.
Goading me. Go on, mate. You do it.
Yes.
It'd be funny.
But yeah, mate, so nice to have you. So nice to meet you at last. I know you and Igor have spent a bit of time together. I mean,
I feel privileged today. I feel like I have my two BFFs on each side. So this is great. This is great for me.
My first question for you is, how did you manage to spend 3 or 4 days in Scotland with this guy?
I mean, I don't know. I guess I made myself useful. Like, it had a camera that took video. That was a good start. But honestly, that was really good trip. Like, it ended up being really interesting driving through like Glencoe, stopping. Like, there's a bunch of video footage that nobody's seen yet, which it sounds dirtier when you say it out loud. But yeah, we took a bunch of video stuff because obviously Igor had a job there, needed like some support second shooting, but also obviously Igor's working on his course.
Yeah, Igor, how is that course coming along? How are you getting on with that course that was meant to be live 12, 13, 14 months ago?
I think it'll be a good conversation.
It's coming in 2027, guys. Igor is launching a course.
I think this will be a good conversation to go when we chat about education. But no, it's hard work, and especially as things have ramped up. I think we both have a newfound respect for anybody that's in the education sphere, don't we? As a content creator, even in fact, just as YouTube, like seeing YouTubers constantly putting content out, the work that goes on. Sorry, Tom, I've just completely
gone back
to it. But yeah, it's just
to be honest, like this is kind of what I prefer anyway. Like I think that. Like, there's a lot of conversations to be had around education and photography, and I think it's important we talk about how isolating it can be. Like you were saying about YouTube, and like it does feel like you're shouting into the void for a little while. Like recently, I posted a video that got like 10,000 views, but that's the one on my channel that's like that. The rest like 200, and I still only have 250.
So instantly, your expectation is, I want 10,000 views on the next video. And
exactly.
They don't live up to that straight away, do they?
And when you read through the comments, the things that people are asking for are things that you would never particularly want to do. Like, they want, one person is desperate for me to try the camera in like the rain, or the other one wants me to try the camera in such situation. It's like you can't please everybody. We don't have the time to kind of be pleasing everyone and following the likes, etc. So you do end up having to kind of be somebody that deals with isolation a little bit better, somebody that's more willing to have an opinion and stick to it and say something. And it's hard, especially when you've got other client projects knocking on the door. You can't just kind of like derail that and think, no, I'm going to do my own thing and ignore my clients, because the fact is we're business owners, we've got work we need to do. So like, I totally get why it's taking you so long, Igor. Like it's not an easy thing to shelve something and try and get your head in the right place that you can blaze your own trail, say something meaningful that's worthwhile to your audience, and get it recorded. It's absolutely a challenge.
Yeah, it has been, but at the same time, I'm not sort of like put down by it, if that makes sense. I just can't wait to get it out. I'm that sort of like.
Yeah, I mean, we're all waiting. I've been waiting for 15 months, Igor.
It's coming. It's coming.
But no, it's right. I think there's a huge amount of work that goes on behind this. I think this of any industry, any profession, there is always more than meets the eye, isn't there? You know,
without a doubt.
Huge amount of respect for anybody that makes YouTube their profession, or they're creating content for educational stuff.
That's it.
It's huge.
But yeah, we're advancing. We love to do this, don't we? We love to sort of jump over the fence.
That point that Tom made as well, it made me go, actually, I kind of, and we've talked about this very briefly before, but we almost downplay what we've done here with this podcast.
Do you mind if I raise up what you've done here with this podcast then? Because from an exterior perspective, like I listen to podcasts all the time. Like when I'm not editing video, if I'm in the office, I'm listening to a podcast. It's that simple. And I think one of the problems we've had is that previously the people that are delivering the material are either completely out of touch and not operating businesses anymore. They're primarily educators, there's nothing wrong with that. Like the fact is, if you're putting all your effort into one thing, it's hard to split, which is why it's so impressive you've done what you've done. But also the fact that you're not sticking to one industry sector. Like you're dealing with creatives in general. So if I'm a bit burnt out on photography one day and I can't stand the thought of looking at another camera, like you have a guest on that makes knives or like builds smokers. I know it's the same guest, to be fair, but like this is, it's good because it means that the advice you're given is multidisciplinary. You can look at it and think, this is going to inspire me whether I remain a photographer for the rest of my career, or if in 6 months I take a hard left turn and go into interior design or events management. The point is, you're trying to inspire people and you're doing that at your own expense. So as an audience member, we don't see the effort you put into it, but it's still appreciated.
I really like Tom.
I knew you would.
I really like Tom.
Thank you, Tom. No, seriously. Thank you, because
we do this every time. We
yeah,
just go straight in.
This was the point. This was the point.
This is great. But should we just intro who Tom is?
Yes. So, Tom, tell us a little bit more about you. What do you do? Why do you do it? And
where are you from?
Just a live questions.
Yeah, just a quick intro.
So
cool.
As you can probably tell by the accent, I am from the north. Like I'm based about an hour out of Manchester in Burnley. Lived there most of my life. Gone into photography actually out of education. I used to be a guitar teacher. Moved to a new town and basically didn't think about how much competition there was in the area. There were like 10 other guitar teachers within a 1 mile radius. So started looking for other stuff to do. Actually ended up walking into Manchester city centre on a whim, walked past a shop, saw some old Polaroid cameras in the window, and it turns out that was the distributor for Polaroid film in the UK, because Polaroid had gone bust. A company called Impossible Project had started making some really terrible film.
Yeah, I can remember Impossible Project.
Yeah, I loved it. Absolutely loved it. I got introduced to Polaroids through Impossible really properly.
It's really cool. But the thing is, they had a product that didn't work. So the distributors was tearing their hair out because they couldn't keep the stuff in customers' hands. They'd go out and shoot one frame and it'd be like literally corroded. Like the black and white film used to rust.
It's true.
So it'd go from black and white day one to day two. It was literally just an orange sheet of corrosion.
And I still got so many of those sheets really that you would shoot it and then just over like 2 days it would be completely different.
So the print would come out great, it'd be fine, but the following day, the day after,
so you literally have to scan it there and then sort of thing.
It's not a great product, is it?
Well, so the thing is, you say that, but it is a great product if you look at it the right way. So the issue was understanding and framing, because these cameras were mainly broken because people were using the one that was in the granddad's attic that had been like got fungus in the lens or whatever. And most Polaroid cameras were consumer products that relied on like how robust the film was to make them work. So I started out doing this, and basically the product isn't terrible largely because it forces you to be creative. And there's something about like the impermanence of something that makes it more interesting. So like Igor was saying, like, you had to scan it right away. But you could scan it right away. You could scan it day one, day two, day three, day four. And every stage during the process, it would give a different result. So if you were the kind of person that valued uniqueness, you could say, cool, I'm a fine artist. I shot this on Impossible Project film, and day 1, it had this color palette. Day 5, it was this, and sell 5 prints that were all the same shot, just at various stages of decay.
Just your mindset and perspective on it, really. Yeah, I like that. It's true.
But that was why they brought me on, because it's all well and good me saying that to you now, but all the customers thought what you did. It was a bad product.
Yeah.
It just didn't work, because the previous audience for it used it as a throwaway party camera, and it couldn't be that anymore, because the film was on top of everything else, was like £25 a pack for like 8 shots. And people were taking the first shot, realizing how much money they'd spent, and then having the buyer's remorse and having the result being predictable. So they're just bringing it back. So in the end, I started a workshop, mainly for my friends initially, just to kind of like have some fun with some cameras, because I'd never picked one up before. Did that once, and then bought like 40 Polaroid cameras, like just off eBay, because they were worth nothing, because there was nobody knew the film existed anymore. So I had literally like duffel bags full of Polaroid cameras.
I love that. It's like an all or nothing approach, isn't it?
Yeah.
I'm all in on this.
Pretty much, like,
yeah, it's great.
So I ended up doing workshops down at Rough Trade in London and a few other places over the country, like Liverpool, and basically my job was to stop customers from returning the film. But it was literally that simple, and I ended up getting my first like commercial connection. When Copperberg launched like a new cider, they had like a launch event in Manchester, so I did some coverage for that, and that was like my first real commercial job. Paid nothing, because I did it through Impossible Project, and they weren't really paying very well. But having come from where I was, that was my intro to photography, and then kind of moved out of being an educator and into being a photographer with weddings, and then gradually into commercial again over years. And right now I'm a freelance commercial photographer, videographer, just starting to do more education stuff, mainly since lockdown. We did a load on
It's almost like full circle a little bit, isn't it?
It feels a lot more comfortable, if I'm being honest. Like I trained as an adult educator, and it feels good to be doing that again.
Yeah.
It feels like it was not what I was meant to do, but it feels like a very natural fit.
Yeah, you are good at it, to be fair, though, because it's one of the things that I admire about you, literally straight away from when I met you. So I think we met Clubhouse. Was it Clubhouse?
Yeah.
And just listening to you, I was like, this guy speaks really clearly and really well. And I'm like, it's just, you just explain things in a really good manner.
Without being kind of condescending or patronising or mansplaining in any kind of way.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a very likeable.
You've got
a very likeable tone, and your messages are very, you just come across from it comes from you can tell it comes from a really good place, and like a place to just want to help. And you even put in your bio that we sent you, like, I'm doing a course, but we don't need to tell people about that. I'm just happy to help.
Yeah.
I was like, good lad.
But that's kind of the thing. Like, it was especially egregious because Clubhouse initially in the UK at least was like, it was basically a 24/7 sales pitch. So when we made Reads, I say we, it was Adam Johnson, Tony Darcy, and me started like a little coffee morning on there, and as they got busy, they kind of backed out and I carried on. But the only rule we had is there's no self-promotion allowed. You can't big up your project, you can't sell your products, because we're in lockdown, and there was such a temptation that people were going to sell an unfinished product that people didn't need at a time when nobody had any money. And we were just really conscious that really we just wanted to encourage people, help them feel less alone. So we talked a lot about mindset, about what kind of struggles we were going through, and it ended up kind of blowing up a little bit. Met a lot of people that I'd kind of known tangentially on the internet for a while, like in the States and here, just because, like, just trying to be nice to people, because I kept thinking, like, I know how bad I found it when things first kind of went south and everything stopped, but I couldn't have been the only one. So we were just talking about how we could try and encourage people to feel more comfortable with the limited activity that they could do, look for other sources of inspiration, keep shooting as much as you can, and try and encourage people to get ready for when things reopened again.
And the format, I used to love the format of the back and forth.
We dabbled a little bit, didn't we? I suppose that's kind of where this was born, really.
Exactly. When we actually think about it properly, yes, we were sort of like thinking of the YouTube. We want to start a YouTube, but then, that didn't work really. We barely recorded.
Didn't do a thing either.
Yeah, and then we started doing Clubhouse together as well.
Yes.
Which, started showing up weekly, and
I think it just made it.
That's it.
Showed
just made
us that
sense.
there was an audience there, and I think it showed us that people were prepared to tune in and to listen.
Yeah, it's true. I've done Clubhouse with both you. 2 rooms. Wow.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And it was weird because that the thing I liked the most about that was that if you ran it well, it was an equal opportunities environment. So, like you said, you had a live episode and how much of a buzz you got off it, because you had 15, well, however many people you had, like 10 or 15 people in here, all like eager to have a conversation. And you kind of said before we started recording that part of what you loved about it was when you had to take breaks for like technical reasons, like when your record limits had hit on your cameras or whatever, like you would relish in those conversations. It's like those water cooler moments that you get if you're working in an office environment, where you could just have a chat, a bit of shop, and just kind of catch up with somebody and just genuinely take an interest. And I think one of the things that's kind of held me back from doing podcast style stuff before is because it doesn't have that. Like that's the thing that Clubhouse did that no other platform has done as well. And I get why it's gone. People are busy. We don't have a chance to sit around the water cooler for hours and hours a day anymore because we've got to work. But yeah, genuinely missed that. And I think that the more you can do to bring like a human element into like a pre-recorded setting, the better, because that's where the good stuff is.
Is Clubhouse completely gone? Or is it just underground now?
It's more underground. I still get notifications. I
deleted it.
Yeah, I still left notifications because I'm still curious to see who's actually still in it. Yeah. But yeah, it's more underground.
You're right. It definitely had. It was one of the few apps or platforms that has come along in recent years that you were like, this could stick around. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Genuinely could stick around.
Yeah.
I'm kind of a bit sad it's not.
Yeah.
I mean, I know why though, because it is still a thing. Like there are still people using it. It just feels like it got pushed very fringe.
Yeah.
Like there's an awful lot of like prosperity kind of, like not prosperity preaching because it's the wrong word. It's not religiously related. It's more like people are trying to sell you get rich quick
with 10 steps.
Yeah. 10 steps to your first million, all this kind of stuff. Or it's very like aggressive, like toxic subcultures that have kind of started to kind of use it as a platform. Yeah. And there probably are other applications. Maybe I'm just not seeing the right stuff, but that
Spaces,
seems to
Twitter.
Be. But that happened because a lot of the people that were creating these rooms on Clubhouse burnt out. Yeah. Like there was a few people that really need credit, like Paul Von Rita. He's an American photographer, amazing photographer, but he gave so much time to making sure the community was looked after at the beginning on there. He interviewed essentially every famous wedding photographer you'll ever meet in a more open way than you can in a pre-recorded format.
It was really good. Great episodes with Jose Villa, Jonas Peterson, and whoever else really,
So like Paul, when he did eventually stop going on there, you realise that how much of the audience was specifically because he was like championing open communication on it, and the second he disappeared, like half of the American audience just went. And then when they went, obviously gradually the UK opened up again, and we had exactly the same experience. Yeah. So it's not big. I don't think there's any lack of desire for people to have that kind of freedom and have that kind of conversation. It's just we had a bit of a unique moment. There were a few people that were willing to drive it, and then a lot of people that had the desire to kind of be encouraged and hear from other people.
Well done, Sam. We did it.
Yeah.
We drove it for a little bit.
Yeah, we gave it a shot, didn't we? But here we are. This is where it's evolved to.
Yeah, exactly.
For us
really
anyway, you know.
Don't downplay that though, because like you almost made it sound as if this is lesser.
It's one of my traits. I always downplay stuff. It's like, it's like, it's okay. I've done it. It's like, I'm very aware of that. I'm very aware that I do downplay it, and I'm trying to make more of a conscious effort to credit myself and give myself a bit of like, no, do you know what? I have done well there. I don't know why. I don't know where that comes from.
Yeah.
But I think as well, this is a better fit for you guys as well, because you're able to have like a more meaningful conversation in a smaller amount of time as well. Like the way that you interview people gets to the heart of a matter a lot faster than it would in other mediums. And I think the fact is that for the limited time people now have, this is what they need. Like this kind of like nice conversational manner, but with a bit more meat in it, a bit more value. You don't have to kind of chalk down a 12-course meal to get your nutrients. You can just go in and grab your Cliff Bar and really enjoy it and then get back to running.
So when you're coming back again, Tom? No, this is great. Thank you. So, Sam.
So, Igor.
Studio Ninja.
Yeah, let's talk a little bit about our sponsor. And I was wondering about what we need to say in this little section, because I really want to talk about just how vital it is to my business. And one thing that came up recently was, in my own business, was that I was thinking about whether I need to get a VA on board. Mm-hmm. Like, do I need somebody that's going to help me just, perform some of the admin tasks? And when I looked at it and it really boiled down to what do I need somebody on board for, I realised that I don't actually do much admin.
Yeah.
And I don't do much admin purely because of Studio Ninja.
Yeah.
Everything's automated. Yeah, my invoices, my diary, my questionnaires that I send out.
Email templates.
Chasing up invoices. Everything's fully automated to the point where it doesn't take a huge amount of my time anyway. So it kind of defeats the whole point of a VA. So for me, it is a very integral part of my business.
Yeah.
And I think when you're running a business, you're self-employed like we are, being efficient, being productive, making sure that things run in the right order. If you find yourself doing any kind of repeat task, you have to say to yourself, why am I repeating this?
Automate it.
And if you can automate it, then that's it. And that's really where Studio Ninja fits in with me and my business. And they have very kindly given us a discount code, haven't they, for this podcast? So what's that discount code, Igor?
Another idea.
And another idea gets you 50% off your first annual subscription.
Yeah.
So it's just a no-brainer. I mean, I wouldn't even be hanging around. Just go and look at Studio Ninja.
Just go and do it right now.
But thank you very much, guys, for sponsoring this podcast. We love you. We appreciate you. Keep it up.
We love Studio Ninja.
Right, I want to pick up on a little bit of your actual commercial photography and videography work.
Yep.
And I know you kind of touched on it earlier a little bit about how you kind of got into photography through like the Impossible Project and Polaroids. But one thing that really stood out when you put your bio to us was about how you'd worked on very kind of complex studio setups.
Yeah.
And now have kind of stripped that back to very organic and simple and minimalistic portraits. And I just kind of wanted to just explore that difference to find out how both of those were to you and also why you've kind of transitioned into that sort of more minimalist approach.
Yeah, sure. I mean, honestly, I love photographing people. Like when I was doing the workshops, I was it was mainly like street photography, but I usually street portraits. So I wanted to photograph people rather than just making it like, oh, here's a lamppost or whatever. Got into weddings off the back of that and ended up moving out of that. But when I did leave weddings, I moved into like an in-house job for a product company, a homeware company. But the majority of their products were translucent. And if anybody's ever had a conversation with you about shooting a product, like translucent products are really tough to shoot because you need to give them dimension with light. And you don't want it to look awful. So you need to do a really good job of mixing hard and soft light. And they had a product library of around about 2,500 products. And those 2,500 products...
I'll keep you busy, won't it?
It gets worse. They came in about an average of 5 colours per product. And in a kind of commercial production space, you'd be looking at a marketing pack for that range, which means that you'd have about 5 images per item per colour and group photographs.
Maths was never my strong point at school.
5 times 5.
Oh my lord.
Well, if it makes you feel any better, it wasn't mine either. But I worked it out, and if I'd worked full time at the rate that I could shoot these products at to a high standard, a high enough standard, if I worked full time, it would take me 3 years to catch up with their back catalogue. Shooting every day, editing every day. That's how long it would take me just to photograph the stuff they already had.
Wow.
And they increased their product catalogue every week. On top of all this, you were in a situation where the company itself, like they're a manufacturing business, and the way that they made their money was like selling like products into places. Like they might have a deal with Home Depot or B&Q or whoever, and they would make a limited product that was only available for that provider. And some of those providers, because of the size of the account, would have say in the product and all the rest of it in the photography. So as a result, my work was being used like all over the place. But because of the volume of work I had to do, the quality wasn't where I wanted it to be. And it was solitary work. You were literally in like a huge psych studio, which is like this huge like curved, like cove-like environment, putting products in place, photographing it, putting the next product in place, photographing it.
I suppose that's the cost of the volume, isn't it? Is that the creativity has to, something has to give.
Yep.
And the thing that gave was probably the creative input.
100%. And there you see examples of this. Like if you've ever been on LinkedIn ever, you'll see job adverts for Boohoo photographer, and it's because essentially, even though you're photographing people, it's a factory. There's just the challenge isn't in the work can be ultra rewarding and beautiful, but the fact that you've got to take 1 million photographs a year and then deal with the backlog that comes with that.
Because they've got so many products.
100%. And if you ever want to learn how to manage time efficiency or like time in Photoshop or any of those kind of things and put a pound sign on it, work in commercial product, because the fact is you can't do it if you're slow, and if you spend too much time on one aspect, it means that you're not onto the next product, you're not keeping up with the pace that you need. So that was in the end the thing that made me decide. Like I just had my son, like Harry was I think 3 months old when I left, and I'd been doing like little pieces of commercial freelance like in holiday time essentially, because obviously I was full time for this company, I was fully employed by them. Did a first job for a gluten-free food company through an agency, made a decent amount of money on it, was really happy with the results, the client was happy, came away and just thought, well, right, cool, this is the time to make the jump. So I did.
It's amazing how like a child can just make you kind of go, I'm going to change tact here.
Yeah.
Yep.
I think we've all been in that position, haven't we?
You reevaluate your life completely, really, in terms of time, in terms of priorities.
Yeah.
And I think that was the factor in the end, because I realised that doing this commercial job, like it was only one, but it paid about the same as 6 months of work at the company I was working for. Now, ultimately, I've decided to go a little bit lower level. Like I prefer to work on smaller projects and not go for kind of one large big ticket thing, and I'll kind of come on to that in a minute, but it really has been refreshing having time with my son. Like all the way through the pandemic, I was able to be at home with him. And that, by the end of it, it was more stressful because obviously it's difficult being around a 2-year-old in lockdown. But at the same time, like I've had more time with Harry than my dad ever had with me. And I love my dad to pieces, he's amazing. Like it was just a fact. Like he was a professional man, he worked in engineering, worked away. You see him a couple of hours each night and that's it. But having that time was a huge factor. But also I felt like I needed to have more creative freedom as well. It's like you were saying, like having that level of product and having that level of turnover, because I was in-house, they didn't really see the cost of things like line extension or like the impact that it had when they made decisions like discontinuing a product in a color on their product library. And I realized that if I ever did work with a company again, I wanted it to be on a smaller scale. And I also realized how much I missed people, because being sat in that studio all day with podcasts in my ears, like feeling isolated, was the worst, probably the most lonely time I've ever had as a photographer. And the vast majority of the work ends up being post-production. So I would spend, for every 1 day in the studio, I'd be spending 2 in post. And it's literally just sitting there with a lasso tool in Photoshop, like trying to cut out a translucent object you shot on white. Like it was.
Have you heard of Canva?
Mate,
at that stage,
that it didn't exist, did it? But yeah, it's a monotonous task.
And the thing is that it rewards efficiency, but there are certain tasks that could not be more time efficient without compromising on the quality. It's like any kind of automatic selection tools don't work on translucent objects because there's no edge to detect. You have to kind of go through and find it. And you kind of learn like when you could cheat on this one. Like, cool, this is translucent blue, I can get away with it. Or like, but in the end, like there were just entire categories where you just had to go to the effort.
I'm glad you've moved away from it.
Oh, I hated it.
Definitely.
I hated it.
So how are you finding now that work with individuals and sort of like more personal sort of space that you sort of like really, really wanted?
Yeah, so I mean, now work is different. Like I try and as often as possible work on retainer, which means that essentially you've got me to maintain your identity for a certain amount of time. We agree a certain number of shoots over a year, for example, and you contract and pay me for that time. But it means that I can have a more personal relationship with the people running the business. It means that we can talk about direction. And very often if you go smaller, those companies don't have marketing departments. They haven't got somebody to help advise them. So you can do more to actually shape the visual identity of the brand. And it's not just a case of come and shoot this on white and be done with it. You've got more control. And I love that. It's amazing. And actually, recently, we've done saying this before, we've done some work with Ego. I went to Scotland, shot some behind the scenes content for his course coming up. Yeah. And more and
great.
But even beforehand, I think the main one, Asylum in London, I think that was, it blew my mind in some ways in terms of like what we can do with video and how you can sort of like put a course together, put product together really.
I also think that there's a massive change coming in the industry generally. We've enjoyed a privileged position as photographers that the primary...
Another change.
Well, yeah.
Oh no, hold on. Let me just fasten in. Let me buckle up. Hold on. Are you ready, guys?
I mean, it's the change you're talking about. It's the one you're talking about right now. It's until this point, we have had the privilege that the work product that we make for somebody else is our marketing material. And I hate to say it, that's over. It's done. Like these platforms don't want you to post photographs anymore. They want you to post video. And whether you like it or not, if you want to get the reach, that's what you've got to do. And I said this in a reel the other day, which is ironic because I was talking about how much everybody hated reels. But it's kind of one of those situations you need to change or just accept the fact you're going to have to pay for access. And we're all upset, partially because we want our artwork to be seen by other people and like to feel respected and happy about what we make and how much effort and time has been put into it. But the fact is that nobody else on Instagram had that luxury. If you were a jeweler, you couldn't just get on Instagram and like instantly see success because you didn't have the skills to make the photographs people wanted to see. So we were in a highly privileged position where we made incredible photographs compared to any other person in any other industry. And yet we were complaining now when we have to go to the same effort that every other person's had to make all this time.
It's a good perspective, isn't it?
I think we'll make a reel out of that clip. But it's great. It's right though. We've said it before in our Instagram episode. You know, Instagram can still be a photo sharing platform if you want it to be a photo sharing platform.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But you've got to accept it's not going to be pushed.
No.
But the thing is that Instagram aren't making this decision to spite us. The backlash has been strong enough that if there wasn't actual data to support it, they would have rolled it back. Simple. Like, people want to talk to people. People want to see you. They want to see something genuine from people. So if we're sitting here and feeling self-conscious, and don't get me wrong, I hate making reels. And it's not because I don't like the format. It's because I don't like hearing my own voice. I don't like sitting behind a computer, like having to edit myself to actually make sense, you know, because I'm not usually super coherent.
So what you've just said, we've been talking a little bit about just behind the scenes about the AGM that we're building and going to hopefully launch soon. But one of the guys that we were looking at as a speaker in one of his videos, it just stood out to me so much so I'm going to write it on one of our walls here.
Okay.
Is that it was just this line: do nothing and nothing happens.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it just felt really relevant then to what you've just said, which is, if you don't want to do video, that's fine, but nothing's going to change. Or actually, probably be inclined to say it's probably your business might go backwards a bit.
Yeah.
Because everybody else is progressing forwards. They're embracing that. You know, think of the generations coming through now that are just conditioned and already prepared to create video content.
Yeah.
Just like we were with photos. You know, you're going to be left behind.
And I hate to say it because I've said this before, and I'll say it again. Like I feel like I'm a photographer, but I make more videos, like by quite a long way. And it's not driven by me; it's driven by clients usually. They want an interview with such and such, like such and such director, or we need something to show of the board. Like people behave like video has only become useful because social media deemed it so, and that's just not the case. Like very often you'd find that corporate entities want stuff to show to annual board meetings or to pitch to a client. Like I did one recently for a company. They make foodstuffs, and they were pitching to Asda. So they spent a huge amount of money producing like a brand film because they needed to get into Asda. Now, you can complain about that as a company, think, oh, well, you should just taste the food. It's not good enough. Like, well, frankly, it probably is, but how are you going to get somebody to eat it if they don't know who you are? And that's how they did it. They went in, they fought to get the meeting, and then paid a huge sum of money to get a sales tool that helped them to sell their product. And in the end, like I think it was about 6 to 12 months after we'd worked with them and we delivered everything, they ended up being like the kind of subject of an M&S advert and a few other bits and pieces. So it obviously done them well enough that they could sell into these places.
Talked about this a little bit with Jess, didn't we, last week, about the importance of personality and brand. And actually, one thing that I wrote down from my notes with you today is a little quote on your website I'll give you now, which is behind every craft, every maker, and every small business, there is heart and soul.
Yep.
And I was just like, yeah.
I like that.
And the problem is that a lot of people aren't aware of that, or they don't know how to get that across, and they don't maybe recognise the importance of what you've just said there.
Yep. And I think this is a prime example. Like I'm using Igor as an example because he's sat here. Like there are other people that have done this.
I like
but
this. Here we go.
Be gentle.
Do you not think though that you've kind of realised that you can't give you 100% to making photographs on a job and making good video of you doing that? Because you can't. Like, I don't care how good of a videographer you are, you can't film yourself while you're shooting somebody else. You're giving away too much attention. But the fact is that there are people out there with businesses literally made to help you. Like, my job on those shoots was to make sure you look good, making the couple look good. And like, this is how you produce content now. And again, you've done it for an educational purpose, but there's no reason somebody else couldn't do that on a more small basis. If the deliverables like a 9-second clip, like 5 times a month, so you've got one reel a week and an extra one, just in case you feel like there's something different, that's huge. And I also think that more people running creative businesses can look at their own marketing assets as a library, because I mentioned that company earlier, 2,500 products, 5 images of product for each color, and then a group shot. If that's the case for them, we only sell one product, but you still need a marketing pack. You still need a merchandising pack. You have a responsibility to sell yourself. And if you want to do that at a higher level, people are going to expect to see that. So when you're looking at your photographic services or your video services, what are you doing to sell yourself? And like you said, Jess was the most recent podcast you released, like as of recording this. It's a prime example. She's making a business, doing exactly what we're talking about here, helping to help other people make images, and that's all we're talking about.
Why do people struggle, do you reckon? What do you reckon is the block?
Well, at the moment I'm struggling with upstairs.
Yeah. The building is okay. That is a ball slam, Igor. If you've ever been to a gym,
yes,
I know you go to the gym and you go on the stepper, but
if you,
I'm going to say that was a 25. 30 kg ball.
Yeah.
It was a meaty one, wasn't it?
As a non-gym goer, a ball slam sounds painful. So
if you're a regular listener to the podcast, you would have heard the balls going upstairs.
Just fortunately, it was the other corner of the office. If it was above us, you would have really noticed it.
But yes, but you said, Sam, or you asked.
Yeah, I wonder. I'm just trying to just open this discussion up between us. Like, what limits or prevents people from putting themselves out there? And like, we've been through it, we can probably understand why it is difficult, but I wonder why people are so anti that kind of approach of no, I'm just a photographer, I'm just going to show photos.
I think number one, it's a cultural thing, because if you look at US, it's just
they're in a different world, aren't they? I mean,
there we go, it's cultural.
Yeah.
The sense of putting your face there and showing your face.
They're like, hey, welcome to my YouTube channel. Hit subscribe. And the guy's got like 25 followers on Instagram. And you're like, what the hell?
Exactly that. Whereas here we are just completely different. It's that sort of like British nuance that.
No, I shall not put myself in front of a video. Can I be honest though? I don't even think it's that. I think it's a branding thing. Because like, I say because like a lot, I'm going to stop doing that. I do think it's a branding thing. I think that when you approach it, your business has kind of got an aesthetic that is, in both of your cases, luxurious, right? You're both luxury wedding photographers. And as a result of that, you kind of approach all of these things and think, this photograph I'm about to post, does it fit my brand? And I think that the disconnect happens when you don't know how to show up to your audience and maintain that. Because it's not like you're philosophically against video, like you're not hating on it or anything. It's just like, well, where does it fit though? Like if I post this camera phone of me going, hey, and like dancing and pointing to stuff, like it's not, I'm too proud. It's not, I feel uncomfortable. It's, this isn't me. This isn't my brand. My clients aren't here for this. How do we make it so this fits better with everything else you produce? And the fact is, the clue's in the title, you're a luxury wedding photographer. So if your approach to marketing it is amateur, it can feel uncomfortable. Doesn't mean that's wrong. It's just that I think part of the reason why so many people are hesitant isn't just that they're scared, because I'm scared, but I still do it. The fact is that you need to find a way of making it fit with your existing offering and appealing to your audience.
I think as well, people get bogged down on the whole idea of just literally just starting. They just don't know how to start. And this is why I admire you, Sam, because you're literally, I'm just going to show my face. I don't know how, but I'm just going to show my face. It's literally like...
Make a fool of myself.
Yeah, a little bit. But it's again, it's that. It's the whole making a fool of themselves. People having the sort of like fear of, I don't know how's this going to be received.
Yeah, I think there just have to be a mindset shift. I do feel like I over the last few years have really been a lot more aware and conscious of being able to just go, no, do you know what? I'm going to do things that scare me a little bit, or maybe like Tom said, like make me feel a bit more uncomfortable.
Yeah, because I even wrote it on. It just made me remember. I even wrote it on my diary, and I think it was probably a conversation that we were having or something like that. But you are your business. Just get that in your mind. You are your business. So start showing up.
Well, one of the attendees last week, I won't name names, but she'll know who she is. And we talked about, you really need to just put your brand and your face and your name across your brand a bit more. It just didn't exist. And bless her, she posted a time-lapse story of her working the following day, and I was like, this is amazing.
This is it.
And then I looked a minute later and it was like the message didn't send. I was like, why is that? And I went back and she deleted the story. It had been live for about a minute.
Come on, people.
And I'm like, come on. She's like, I just wasn't sure. And she found reasons for why it needed to come down and then reposted it. I was like, no, you need to let go of those fears a little bit and not worry that it's not.
I think that
it always needs to be perfect. It doesn't.
Well, perfectionism is definitely dangerous, like in this avenue, because you're not going to be good at it until you've tried. And I think, again, if you're going to...
She described herself as a toxic perfectionist, which I thought was brilliant.
I mean, to be honest, like I think all perfectionists are. Like, there is no such thing as perfect. Like, there is no thing that's ever been made...
Have you not seen our Instagram feeds?
I mean, curated and incredible, but perfect, like, it's... I think this is a fallacy. I don't think anybody is capable of making something perfect for a number of reasons. One, I don't think I'm capable. I think anybody's capable of achieving that. But on top of that, it's so much about your audience's perception. What if you hate sci-fi and like somebody shows you Star Trek for the first time? You're going to be bored to tears. Like you just because you're not interested in it. I love Star Trek. If I hadn't watched that with my dad as a kid, I would have been a sadder child. Is all I'm saying. But the point is, it's about your audience as well. And this is something this is the reason I continue to make reels. In the end, you're trying to find the 4 or 5 people that one sentence you wouldn't have said if it was perfect hits home for. It's not about you, it's about what you're saying. It isn't even necessarily about what you're saying. I've just said that. It's about making sure somebody else appreciates and understands something that they need. And if you're there to solve a problem, and businesses should be, you should be there to fix something. Either make somebody feel better about themselves, or like give them a legacy, something they can look back on in years to come, or educate somebody, help somebody to get past a block, help them to book clients, help them with the workflow, whatever. The point is that if you don't say anything, how are they ever going to know how to fix the problems they already have? They could be making mistakes they're completely unaware of, and that one sentence from you could be just enough to get them out of that, help them improve and continue being a photographer, to stay in business. So when you're thinking, should I say this, think about the person you're speaking to and say it to them.
So
I was like, what is going to happen? Like, you just looked at me like, so Tom, tell me about your mother.
No.
We'll keep that in the edit though. That was a nice little
That's
moment.
why I'm trying
It was
to
a little bit
pause
terrifying, I'm not going to lie.
So you've said how you very much started with education, guitar teaching, then went into big commercial jobs, rooted into small commercial jobs. Now you're trying to get into education again. How are you finding that journey and getting back into teaching, and in some ways why?
I mean, I think the biggest block for me was that when I moved kind of into trying to be a wedding photographer, I did some courses with a company that will remain nameless that was based in the north of England, that used to run business intensive workshops. And it was such a colossal waste of money. I've been so nervous about any kind of high-end education in any industry, because I looked at it and kept thinking, this is atrocious. I can't believe that they charge this amount to somebody starting out when actually there was no value provided. It was a 2-day pitch for product and brand partners, and honestly it was upsetting. Not because I think education is bad, but because at the time it was such a huge investment for me, and I knew that it needed to have an impact, and it just didn't. And I think honestly, the Clubhouse factor was the thing that's got me back. Like it wasn't until I realized that people didn't necessarily intuitively know some of the things that I knew, hadn't learned things that I had, that I kind of realized I needed to do more to share it. And it actually took quite a lot. Like I was speaking to a few people. I've got a business coach, and I actually had a couple of other people on Clubhouse recommending I start doing that because of the way that I was speaking to people. And it wasn't until maybe a year ago I started actually educating again. And since then I've kind of kept it very simple. It's specifically about workflow, because I find that like 9 times out of 10 photographers are learning from other photographers that have kind of cobbled it together as they went along. A lot of people use Lightroom like it was 2011, and there've been huge changes and continue to be huge changes to how the platform's designed to work. And honestly, I kind of did the first real sessions and started seeing people's editing time drop. People going from 7 days of post-production for a wedding to like half a day to a day, and clearing the backlog. There's one photographer I dealt with, and she literally had a backlog reach until April last year. So she was shooting this year's weddings with 4 months of weddings from August of last year, because that's just how long it took her to edit. But we worked together in, I think it was late April this year, and she's been up to date for months and is basically clearing weddings the same week she's shooting them or very soon afterwards. And I think that's kind of the thing that made me realize how important it is.
Mm-hmm. Oh, it's massive.
Once you start seeing the results really, and how you are sort of like how people there.
I think sorry I interrupt you. I think people are really intimidated, aren't they, by systems.
True.
I also think this is something that comes back to brand again. It's difficult to admit that you're not perfect at everything when you're working at a high level. Mm-hmm. Like I said before, I have a business coach, and it's because I'm not perfect at every aspect of the work that I do, and I don't pretend to be, and you shouldn't. And I think as a result of that, because people want to be seen as somebody that's in a position where they can educate, maybe they're teaching their own courses, etc. You can't stop learning. And the point is that if you were at the pinnacle of every aspect of your career, you'd be in a very rarefied group. And I don't think that's true for the majority. I know for a fact that I'm completely happy with the way that I shoot. But I absolutely need somebody to show me how to get that in front of people. Mm-hmm. How do you get over creative block, all that kind of stuff. And I think for a lot of photographers that there's a hesitance to learn because they don't want to be perceived as a beginner. When in actual fact, some of the people that I've known best in this industry are always learning. And even if they're selling their own education products, it hasn't stopped, because the fact is the industry doesn't stop. Like we talked earlier about video, like if you want to move into that and you don't know how to film videos, you need to learn.
Yeah, you're going back to the start again, aren't you?
Yeah.
Again, we talked about Tony before. Tony talked about the second mountain, and we started reading that book about that kind of, like, you know, you conquer the first mountain, which is learning to become a photographer, and then you're like, okay, I've done, finished. I'm set for life. See you later. But actually, it's the worst thing you can do, and actually, you need to get back to the bottom of the mountain again and start.
And I also think that there's a difference between prescriptive and tailored education as well. Like if you walk into a situation where you're buying something pre-recorded, there's a huge place for that, because it means that you know you're going to get a repeatable experience. You can look at past examples and think that will work for me because it worked here, here, and here for this person, this person, and this person. That's great if you have a common problem. But if you don't know what your problems are, or you need a solution that's tailored, as in your work is not the same as the person next to you, or you don't want to compromise on something that you're doing, that's when coaching is important. So part of the reason why I restarted with coaching rather than like a kind of pre-recorded thing is because I'm seeing a lot of people having issues that are similar but not the same.
Yeah.
And the actual time-saving elements are when you adapt what they're doing to kind of fit a better practice, and then let them run with it.
Yeah.
Whereas every time I've done something like, oh, do this, and this, it does still have results, but it isn't the same. And it doesn't create the same confidence that you need to kind of fully invest in something like that.
Yeah. And that's the key, isn't it? It's about investing.
Yeah.
You know, thinking of that photographer that you've just spoken about, going from, you know, editing weddings from the previous calendar year to now just knowing what they're doing, the time frame's reduced, cleared within a few weeks, whatever it might be. Just the weight and the pressure that must be off those shoulders now to be able to run a business And also just the time. I suppose people see it as, oh, it's a lot of money.
Mm-hmm.
But actually, when you really think about it and you think about the time that she has now saved and how she can redistribute that time to other parts of her business, well, it's all of a sudden
ridiculous.
It's not expensive,
the
is
ROI it's so high, really. And I was going to say, you got to think it from this perspective as well, in terms of education, and especially within our industry. But if you go into university, you're going to pay a bomb per term, literally $9,000 easily, which is ridiculous when you really, really think about it. What some of these sort of like courses out there, yes, there's this sort of like, how do I say it? There's this fear, or sometimes unknowability of, if I'm going to pay, let's say, $2,000 for this course, am I really going to get back my value?
That's probably the fear that Tom had with the course that he went to. And,
100%.
And it didn't deliver.
Yeah.
So, because the entry point or the standard can be high or low, whatever else, but when you know where it's coming from, in some ways, it becomes a lot easier, and especially when you see it from the perspective that I was saying about uni and everything else, it's actually quite cheap for what you're gonna do.
Staggeringly cheap.
The result of that girl, in terms of, again, the ROI for what she paid for what she is doing right now, it's ridiculous. And
this is kind of the issue, though, because the challenge, if you're trying to market education, is making promises that you can definitely deliver on for every person. Because, like you said, otherwise confidence is undermined. But the other thing is, because we know that we're working as it is and things are status quo, people are hesitant to make changes to workflow specifically because, well, it's working, why would I change it? And I think that we look at examples like the one I just mentioned, and that, I don't think many of us would take 7 full 8-hour days to edit a wedding if you were shooting a wedding. Like, maybe there's some that are, but most wouldn't. But the fact is that as time progresses, if you don't upgrade your systems, like, cameras aren't making smaller files anymore. They're not shooting like easier to handle formats. You're going to find that if you don't keep up with this stuff, it runs away from you.
Yeah.
And I think that having some kind of budget in place for continuous improvement from like an actual product standpoint is massive. Because in the end, we are photographers. Like, the thing that we are delivering is a photograph. And this is kind of a separate issue, but I kind of went on a bit of a rant on Instagram the other day about outsourcing, because I genuinely feel like AI and outsourcing, when you're not ready for it,
here we go.
It's so damaging. So let's take an example. Say if you start using a popular AI service, again, I don't like naming companies because I don't think anyone's doing anything wrong, and you're new in your career, you've done 4 or 5 weddings, you've got your first camera, you're ready to go, and you all of a sudden you pick up and like people are booking you, and you're still working your day job, and you think, I need to get some time back. You've got 2 options. You can either spend the time and learn and accelerate that by buying education, or you can outsource either to an AI software company or to an actual person. If it's AI,
short-term game.
Yeah.
The thing is, there are situations where it makes sense long term too. But if you're new and you give AI your last 5,000 images to decide what your color palette should be, who's in control?
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah.
It's true. I think, it's a dangerous game. It is a dangerous game, especially the way our industry is going. But I'm all for AI. Absolutely love it.
I'm for it, but I wouldn't go back to my first 4 or 5 years and change a thing. Even like the volume that I shot, that volume of weddings that I shot then forced me to go, right, I need the systems in place to be efficient and to have a structure and a workflow that still stick with me now. And I'm like, oh, maybe I do need to update to Lightroom Mobile, but that's another question. There was so many things that were racing through my mind then when we were talking. There was that. There was also, you're an educator, but you have a business coach.
Exactly.
I want to explore that a little bit more.
So I kind of touched on it before. Like, I've actually had multiple business coaches, because as far as I'm concerned, I need expertise. I am not perfect at running a business. I'm really terrible at promoting myself. Like, you've probably heard in the conversation, I talk about concepts a lot, but I don't like talking about me. But as you've both said, I am my business. Like, if you hire somebody, you're hiring me. So I needed somebody to remind me that I needed to be more present. I need somebody to keep me accountable. If I don't record a reel this week, my business coach is going to be telling me I need to do it. Like literally that.
It's like having a business PT.
Yeah.
It is, yeah. Exactly that. And the wonderful thing about it is you can pick people with the expertise that you're missing. If you're a business maven, congratulations. Like, one, I wish I was. That'd be awesome. But there are people that can teach you the photography element. If you're doing anything, there is going to be somebody that is more skilled at the area that you're deficient in.
Yeah.
And deficiency sounds like such a horrible word, but it isn't. It's fine to be like lopsided and to be like focused on something you care about. Like if somebody said to you today, like, you can't develop your photography anymore, you're not allowed to. I'm going to take your cameras off you. You've got to spend 110% of your time on your accounts. You probably got spare. You just hire an accountant. Like the fact is, like, how much would it be worth to you to get the camera back in your hands?
Yeah.
And for me, it's exactly the same. Like if I want to teach people, I need to know how best to present what I'm teaching to people.
We talked about American culture a little bit ago, didn't we, as well? And I think that's a really notable difference between American and British cultures, is that they are so much more aware and open to education as a way to progress and develop themselves than we are in the UK. We're almost a bit like, no, I don't need to. No. I don't need to be told by somebody what to do. I know what I'm doing. I'm going to figure it out myself, you know. And
you
I
said
think you need to flip that mindset.
Yeah, very much true. You said you had 2 business coaches previously. How do you even go about choosing who you're going to trust as a business coach?
Look at the results. Like who's doing what you want to do?
Yeah, but what made you sort of like make the jump to, I'm going to invest in this with you specifically?
I mean, that was an interesting one, because for me, the first person I hired as a business coach was James and Joe Melia. The people I knew personally, I respected them, liked the way that he conducted himself, and he was honest, and I felt like I knew him as a person. It's like know, like, and trust factor. That takes the fear away. But it gets to a point where the relationship became more like a peer-to-peer thing, and you're working on the same level because they've shared the knowledge they've got, and that's the purpose of education. Like, if that wasn't the case, we'd all still be in year 1 and that having the same teacher. Like, that's we need to progress. And the Melias still people that I highly respect and would recommend to anybody that's trying to learn. Amazing people. But if I was specifically looking for, say, marketing advice, I might need to look elsewhere because they don't communicate the way that I do. And at that point, you're looking to try and find out, well, okay, who's talking the way that I want to talk? Who's editing the way I want to edit? Like,
gravitate towards the people that look like you want to look like. Then that's what you're saying.
Yep. And like you said, if people are endeavoring to present themselves honestly, and I hope people are, that means that you can kind of look at that and say, well, cool, this is the person saying that they do what I need to fix, and let's go with that. And that's still the case now. Like, the person that's coaching me, she's a professional business coach, but she's worked as a photographer. She still has a photography practice, but she's primarily developing her education practice. I don't particularly want her clients, but I want to know how she speaks to them. And that's been the most valuable element. It's things like not realizing when you've got a subconscious block. So I am not good at assessing my own performance. So let's say I've recorded a reel and I lose 5 followers because those 5 people were there for when I was doing wedding photography 5 years ago, and Instagram hasn't showed me a post in that time, and they see me like, okay, I don't want it anymore. Cool. But in my head, I'm like, why do they hate me? Like, what's wrong with me? Like, what have I done wrong? And actually, there's a refining process going on. But me looking at that and saying that to you is one thing, but seeing all the effort I've just put into making that reel that felt uncomfortable, and then moving on and thinking, like, I need some help here. Like, what's going wrong? Looking at my analytics, because that's how I'd previously measured effectiveness, and seeing the numbers go down. Having a business coach meant that they could say, like, you should expect a shrinkage of this much. If it's less than this, it's actually within plan, and you'll see it grow in X amount of time. And like, having that kind of reassurance means that when you're making decisions that are not junk food, it's choosing the 1 mile run and not the sofa sit. You don't just feel uncomfortable because you've run and got a stitch and wonder why it was painful. You think, no, this is the first step towards my marathon. You're trying to build a practice that feels uncomfortable, that's beneficial. And that's kind of the ultimate positive. And you said it's like a PT. It's exactly like a PT. It's literally the same. It's the same role. Somebody that understands
just
the body works.
Include ball slams.
I mean, I hope not. If that happens, I'm moving on.
Right, give me 20 ball slams.
But this is ultimately where it comes to. Like, who knows how to get you unstuck?
Studio Ninja, Igor.
Here we go.
Yeah, I'm off again. But I just wanted to talk about one more thing, because I think, and I'm not here to criticise one of our sponsors, but I think they're missing a trick.
Ooh, shots fired. Tell us what
so
you're thinking.
It claims to be designed by photographers for photographers, which it is. It is designed by photographers for photographers. So I'm not arguing that. But it's not just for photographers.
That's it. So much
I just
more.
think it's for anybody that's in a service-based industry. This piece of software is invaluable. I've had friends that are MUAs, hairstylists, florists, stylists. You name it. I've had them all reach out, and I've given them sort of guidance and setting them up that have gone on to use Studio Ninja and like, this is invaluable for our business.
Yeah.
So if Studio Ninja are listening and watching this back, might want to think about who you're targeting it to, because actually I think they're missing a trick. I think there's a whole market. There's a whole market out there that, you don't just need to be a photographer or a videographer in the wedding industry. If you are a service-based industry and you've got clients or couples, whoever they may be, and you need to book people in, you need to send them automated emails, invoices. The system and the software is there for anybody to use in whichever business they're operating in.
Yeah, get Studio Ninja.
There you go. So what's the discount code, Igor?
Oh.
You should know it by now, because I've told you a few times.
Let me see.
I wonder what it could be.
I'm guessing. I'm joking. It's another idea. It's that simple. So if you go to Studio Ninja, type in that at the checkout, and you'll get 50% off for the whole year, and you'll get the first month free.
You get the first month free, and then another idea gets 50% off their first annual subscription.
There we go.
There you go. Sorted.
Go get it. Right, let's go.
I've got a question.
Okay.
Is it okay, Tom, to be friends with somebody that prefers Prosecco to champagne? Is it allowed?
So, no, Prosecco is preferred. The price per enjoyment.
I'm off. I've had enough of the pair of you.
He's gone, everybody. He's gone. Thank you, Tom. You can come back. You can come back.
Honestly, Prosecco is the better beverage.
Definitely not. Anyway,
he knows exactly what he's doing.
I do. So the thing is, if you're telling me,
did like you earlier, Tom. I'm not so sure now.
If you're telling me the only way to have a tasty sparkling wine beverage is to have it made in one region in France, I disagree.
Okay.
Just plain and simple.
I like Cremol. Cremol's nice.
There we go. See, you've broadened your horizons.
Yeah.
Is this just an anti-Italian thing?
I'm just not a fan of Prosecco. Yeah.
Is it the sweetness?
I get headaches from Prosecco, and
right.
It's like, I find it quite. It's always got like a bit more of a chemical taste to me than.
Oh yeah, there's definitely an acidic aftertaste to it.
Than champagne.
I kind of like that though. This is like Igor said before. Like you kind of kindly bought me a crate of IPA, which is amazing.
Some chocolate.
I know. I can't wait. It's going to be good.
We like to look after our guests, don't we?
I feel pampered. But like the main reason why I like IPA now is because they've varied it. Like so, IPA was made way back and to try and keep beer good when it was traveling a long way to India, and that stuff tasted awful because it was bitter and nasty, but it used a lot of hops to keep it fresh. And then Americans made it all sweet and tasty, and now it's lovely. So I think it's the same.
Exactly, this is what I mean. Now imagine like a whole 8-hour journey through Scotland, and literally the conversation literally just went everywhere, absolutely everywhere.
I've been messaging Tom recently about film cameras, and every camera that I'm like, what about this one? He's like, okay, yeah, so this is a great camera, but there's an issue, and it's like every camera. It's like, Tom, have you used every single camera that I'm sending you? Yeah, pretty much.
I mean, you ended up buying a Mamiya 645, which is an amazing camera, but you bought
the wrong version. Yeah.
No, you bought the better lens. Like this is the thing. Like there are certain things like where you could, let's say if you're a Canon shooter right now and you don't have a nice 50mm lens, Sam.
Yeah, I don't. I have the 85.
Yeah, but there are certain lenses that kind of make it worth owning the system, and that's even more true on film cameras. Like that Mamiya 80mm 1.9 you got, for anybody that's actually interested in this stuff, it's the fastest medium format lens that was ever released. Like it's a beautiful.
And I bought it by absolute fluke. But
this is the thing. It's like when you said, "I got this one," like great, that's cool. Because if you're going to go to the expense of shooting film, and let's face it, it's getting more and more expensive. Make it worth it. Do something you can't do.
It could be really expensive. The film comes back that we tested last week, and it's like So, Sam, we've developed your film, and there's nothing on it. Yeah.
And then when that comes back, you're like, am I really a photographer?
That's 40 quid just thrown away.
Yeah.
But yeah, knowing how varied you are and how versatile you are in terms of conversation, what are sort of like your current inspirations in terms of film and art, music, whatever?
So TV has gotten amazing recently. Like just plain and simple. Like there are TV series that are coming out now, even from like major studios, that are just fantastic. If you haven't already like watched it on Disney Plus, Loki. The whole thing, the set design, the way they deal with atmosphere, angles, incredible. They spend basically the entire series shooting up at actors with a 24mm lens, and it looks awesome. It's like a really good challenge, loads of distortion, interesting set design. Love that. Magazines, like I'd always love a magazine. Like it's a huge source of inspiration, because I find that a lot of people working in the commercial space will do those as passion projects or advertisements, and you can have a look through and see what's lighting other people up. Absolutely love magazines. Like
magazines slow you down as well, don't they, by nature?
Yeah.
You have to slow down and take. It's not like I've seen that next image. It's
It's
like
not Instagram.
That process of absorbing the content is just.
And you really look at it, don't you? You really analyse it. Yeah.
But I think in terms of what's inspiring me creatively outside of that, it's actually been photographing family more. We're talking about this between like ad breaks, but I've got a little Fuji camera right now, and it's genuinely made me happy to take pictures again, because like I said before, I left my like full-time photography job to have more time with family, and now I've got a camera in my pocket all the time, and I get to make pictures of my kid and my wife and the stuff that we do. And I feel like there's a difference between being an appreciator of somebody else's artwork and then the actual act of making something. And I really love photography as a medium to look at, but for me it's always been like more of a performance art. I like the action of holding a camera in my hand, like working out how it works, taking pictures with it, trying to lean into that like 5% where you make magic. I really love the process of experimenting with new things. And you said before, like knowing how varied your interests are, but part of the reason why I know about all these film cameras is because I like playing with cameras. Like I like the way that 80mm you've got, the focus throw is really short, and you can get the focus where you want, but it's quick and fun to use and soft and low contrast. And it's like when you look at photography as a technical exercise, there are two things you can think. You can either look at it as like, oh, it's boring, I don't want to know the specs, or you can be looking for something that's like that 1% that nothing else does, to try and get something unique. And I think that's where my inspiration is. I really like learning about new things, to try and push it to a position where nobody else would use it, or to try and make something comfortable that would have been uncomfortable before. So ultimately, outside of like visual inspiration from other places, I think actually using the equipment that I've got it's been amazing recently.
That's really good. On your form, you put literally right at the end, and I want to do this in the most respectful way. You put it right at the end that you got PTSD and dyspraxia.
Yeah.
And I thought it would be a disservice if we didn't touch upon those points for anyone listening and everything else. So, how have you literally within your professional life navigated around it?
So I didn't really touch on it massively, but the reason I left weddings is because of the PTSD. Like I find the evening reception was triggering, and there's a lot of drunk people around there, and it just got to the point where there's one particular wedding where a particularly gross set of groomsmen, and I was just like, I'm done with this now. So at that point I just didn't take any more bookings, and I've still got one wedding left, but it's for a prior couple, and that's happening like next year in the Lake District. But these are people that are new, and I've actually photographed the majority of their families' weddings, but it just got to the stage I just couldn't cope with that kind of like high alcohol party environment where other people are having the time of their lives and maybe not as respectful as they should be. And all I can say is I don't know how it feels to be a woman in that environment, because even as a guy, it was really triggering. I know a lot of people don't have those issues, but there are some pretty frightening statistics about sexual harassment in the wedding industry. And for anybody that's experienced that, like, you're definitely not alone. It's sadly, over the course of the career, it's the vast majority of people experience something like that. And I just got to the stage I thought it's not really worth it. I'm a photographer, I can do these other things, so just changed avenue. But frankly, if it wasn't for the PTSD, I don't think I would have left weddings, because actually aside from that, I loved the challenge of the documentary elements. It was all wonderful. But that's one side of it. You mentioned dyspraxia as well, and that's actually something that's had a recent change for me, because dyspraxia is like, for those that don't know, it used to be called clumsy child syndrome, which is super blunt.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
It can be called DCD, which stands for developmental coordination disorder.
Okay.
But what it actually is my brain works faster than the communication to the rest of my body. So like the best way I can describe it is, one of my teachers, it was my RE teacher at school, said his brain works faster than his hands. Because I'd start a point, I'd be writing it down, and then the sentence would just end, as in like, and
Wow.
so there you go. Like it'd be the middle of a sentence and just finish. Because in my head, I'd already written it down and I'd moved on.
Yeah.
And for me, it was quite discouraging, because I was put in like remedial classes all the way through school, literally treated like an idiot. And then finally got to college and doing music, because obviously I ended up being a music teacher in the end. But my music teacher kind of picked up on the fact that I wasn't performing as well as everybody else, but I was working as hard. And she sent me for an assessment. So went in, did the assessment, turns out I'm dyspraxic. That's literally it. That's the only support I've had from the government or any kind of educational establishment. Everything else has been done when I did my teacher
How old were you
training.
when that happened?
17, 18.
Wow, okay.
Wow.
Yeah.
Gosh,
Just-
so that's quite your entire educational life. You're going through it.
Literally, I got the assessment the week before my final exam at college. It was just that late.
How did you take that? How did that?
Imagine somebody telling you that the water's wet, because it's always been that way.
Yeah.
Like it didn't make a blind bit of difference to me. Like you don't, especially with like neurodiversity, which refers to basically anything that's a kind of disorder that affects the way that you think.
Yeah.
You don't know any different. How could you? You see the world through the lens that you've got, and that's it.
Yeah.
So for me, some of the ways that it presents is overwhelm. So very often it's difficult for me to assess what input to act on in what order, and I don't normally learn in a sequential manner. So let's say you were trying to teach me how to load a roll of film, and you say, right, the first thing you do is open the film back, then you pull out your instant cartridge. By the time you got to that point, I've lost you, because the way that I learn is not chronological, it's holistic. So I have to understand how everything on that camera works, and then when I know that, I can reload it, because I know how it works.
Man,
That's incredible. I have to say, before we get into anything else, I know you put a reel out recently about it, and there's a huge amount of respect from a lot of people that you were as open and willing to share that, because I don't think enough people do talk about it. You know,
I'd agree.
So
but I think as well, me knowing you, it just makes sense.
Yep.
It just makes sense for you and your character, and I'm like, yeah, that's Tom.
Yeah.
That's Tom.
Yeah.
Oh, that makes so much sense, literally, with conversations and everything, because you always want to know how something works, like before, like, but the whole thing.
Yeah.
And even in conversations, no ego, but this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because if I don't have a holistic view, I don't understand it on any level.
Yeah.
So the challenge is that
When you say holistic view, literally a view
All
of the
of
whole
it.
thing.
all of it.
Yeah.
this probably ties into exactly what you do in workflow support and education for photographers, because
Exactly.
actually the complexities of an efficient workflow are
Yep.
pretty complex, right?
Yep.
You know, there's a lot of traps to fall in.
And one of the things you mentioned before is that I'm a clear communicator, but actually it's because I have a whole understanding. It's not that difficult to explain one part of it anymore, because I understand it. The downside is, if I'm trying to learn something new, that barrier is massive. Like it takes me a long time to learn these skills. And that goes again back to the coach, because I need accelerated learning. If I don't have somebody to speed up the process, I'll run out of stamina and I'll stop. And that's just a fact. And all of this is intellectual stuff, because photography, it felt like a gift, honestly. Like the first time I picked the camera up, like I said, it was by happenstance. I was doing something else. It's a coordination disorder. Dyspraxia means that my motor coordination is terrible. Like I actually have had issues learning to drive because of it. It's really kind of hard. And I'm not a particularly severe case. You get some people that can't make complex mouth movements. Some people can't move their fingers at joints. There's all sorts of levels of it, and I'm definitely not affected as badly as some people can be. But I was teaching the guitar, But the reason I was teaching the guitar is because I couldn't perform. Because compared to everybody else with me, I was slower. And when you're trying to keep time with other people that are improvising, just couldn't keep up. But it was an amazing opportunity for me to teach other people that were also neurodiverse. So one of the best students I ever had was a kid that was also dyspraxic, but again, much more severe, couldn't speak some days, couldn't move their hands in complex shapes. So it's like, how do you adapt learning an instrument to this person? And I'd said this on the reel you're talking about, but Snap Photo Fest did a survey, and 65% of the people that responded to that survey, which is obviously not everybody, identified as being neurodivergent, which is the term that you use for people with any of these disorders. But we don't talk about it. So literally more than half of the people that are in a room of photographers at a conference don't learn the way that everybody else does. And yet we approach education in the same way for everybody.
So true.
I mean, it's
incredible.
It's making me think. It's just making me just open my eyes, really. Open my eyes, really, to education, really, how to really adapt and fill in the gap. Yeah.
I think a lot of this stuff can be instinctive as well, because if you view education from the point of view of like, no, my job is to make sure this person understands at some stage. Yeah. Like the how doesn't matter as much, and you get there. And I think, again, that's another reason why I'm a pretty big proponent for one-to-one help, because it's the most efficient way of doing something. It doesn't scale very well, but it's efficient. But as well, like there are wonderful things about it. Like you said, oh no, Tom, like this is how you operate, and it's true. It's true. Like I know that I have a good mechanical understanding of things.
Going to be my question to you is like, what are the advantages to it? And how does it impact you on a sort of day-to-day basis in a positive way?
So let's say you're given a new camera, and somebody says like, cool, this is the upgrade. Now you need to go out and make stuff with it. Like that's like a playground to me, because I'm now exploring something like a new piece to fit inside of this huge puzzle that I've got. And it means that when you kind of have mastered something and you have a full command of it, the joy is like finding new ways to make it fit and thinking about it from different angles. Like even simple things. This sounds so boring, but lens selection is so interesting. Like there's like hundreds of years of lens design, and yet in the last 5 to 10 we've decided that we want sharpness to be the main thing we look at. Why? And if you don't want that, then what do you do? And like these are like new questions that you can look at and examine and think, where does this fit? Where's the art in this? So you're taking something that's technical, and because you've got a mastery of it, you can make it artful.
He's come in our studio as well and ripped apart our studio setup. So what I would do is I'd film this from this angle, I'd put the lights over there, but it kind of fits. It's that real technical understanding of everything that's happening.
It can be a challenge, because basically you need to stay open as well, because if my mental model is wrong, I need to be ready to change as well. And because it's harder for me to learn again, there can be resistance. So like keeping that curiosity and like asking the questions, like that's where the joy is. And like I said, inspiration, like cool, like other media, great, but what about what's right in front of us? Like what about that?
Are you constantly sort of like, when sometimes you might be watching a movie and you're looking at a very much an analytical sort of point of view, are you?
I know where this is going.
Are you constantly doing that?
Yeah.
Or does it have like an off button? No.
So. Sorry, you don't have an off switch for your dyspraxia?
No, I mean...
wait, hold on. Tom, just turn it off for a second. Oh, what's it like?
No, there's levels. In my mind, I'm asking if there's levels the same way. Yeah. Do you know what I mean?
No, so there isn't. The only way I can switch off is by watching things I've already watched. Wow. So repetition is great. I love comfort TV. So give you an example. Like you've seen Dune, right?
Yeah.
Seen Dune?
Yeah.
Cool. Good. I'm glad that you can say that, because I know you don't like sci-fi. So, but did you know that it was scanned onto 35mm film?
Nope.
So they made a print for it. So they did the film, they did the color grade, they did the VFX, and then they printed that onto film and rescanned it, because they wanted natural bloom and texture. And when you watch the film, all the way through the film, because I watched it in IMAX the first time, I was like, why does it look good? Why does it look good? Why does it look so good? And then that was all I could think through the entire film, like, why does this look so good? And there are sections when because I watched it in IMAX, the aspect ratio changed, and Kate, my wife, I didn't even notice. I'm sitting there like, how did they do this?
Yeah.
So
It's like, oh, I've got more popcorn.
yeah, like she hates it because she's just trying to watch a film, and I was sitting there, how did they do it? Because it kind of becomes an obsession, but it's fun. Like, I love that.
Oh, that's you.
You embrace it.
Yeah.
You embrace
it's your
it.
makeup.
That's really good.
I think that, yeah, it definitely does not switch off.
Yeah.
What does the future look like for Tom now going forward? Obviously in like education and more mentoring and courses, that's only going to grow by the looks of it from what you already put out and the feedback you've had. I can only see that kind of growing, which is great. But anything else in the pipeline that you want to kind of share with us?
I'm just happy to be here, to be honest. Like, if
I'm
I'm being,
have you here? It's been great, isn't it?
It's been great. It's
Like,
very different.
it's. I just want to keep doing more. I want to, like, outside of the business and application side of it, I want more opportunities to do more stuff with a camera. And I don't care what it is. I just want to make more photographs, like, of my family, for a business, like helping people promote themselves. I don't mind. And the education side of it is very much an offshoot of that, because I can't teach somebody if I don't know. So realizing that, like, I don't like calling them superpowers, but realizing that my tendency is to learn and to try and test things and then show people how to do it. That's all I really want to do. Like, whether that's in a commercial project, working for a company, trying to work out how to get their visual identity across, or whether it's for a photographer, trying to help them to get a better understanding of what makes their work look the way it does and do it quicker or more expansively or with more flair. That's what I want. And the fact that I'm at the beginnings of being able to do that for commercially, it's really exciting. So I'm looking forward to doing more of that.
I think we're both excited for you, aren't we?
Yeah,
I'm
very much
excited.
so. Very much so.
Look forward to seeing where it
Especially
goes.
having like a better insight into everything that is Tom Wright. Yeah, I can see this taking off and going really well. Where can people find you?
So Instagram, I'm at bytomw, bytomw. My main website is www.bytomw.com, same spelling. And if you want to learn about the education stuff I'm doing, it's tomw.photography.
Boom.
Amazing. We've got one more question, haven't we? Do you remember what that question is, Igor, after last week? I'm not
I
ready.
do.
Do you remember that question?
I do. We did fail at that
And
sort of
one
question.
more thing. You've been watching Apple events again, right?
No.
Okay, never mind.
No, we haven't. Oh, well, I've seen snippets of the new iPhone and the cloud that it has. Is it the cloud? No, it's what is the bright
I think Tom's going to tell us.
Okay. It's true.
That's not what I meant at all.
true.
Oh, okay, go on.
There's
Do you
like
mean Apple?
there's like a trope at an Apple event where they just say one more thing and then announce another product or something.
Oh, okay.
That's it. That was all it was.
Oh, no.
But it's a satellite link, and I did know that.
There we go. But no, we have this one question that we love to ask every single guest from 2 episodes ago.
Yeah, 2 episodes ago. Still in its infancy.
It's an age-old tradition.
Yeah, but if you were to give any sort of advice to 14-year-old Tom, what would it be, knowing what you know today?
Pick up a camera and start working on your self-esteem now, because like the way that things are going is not the way it'll be in a year. And honestly, I think that's not bad advice at any age. Like, you don't know what's happening tomorrow.
Yeah.
Just take the action now and try and better yourself today, because like, small steps lead to big results.
Why self-esteem though?
Because this is ultimately a thing. Like, I think for a lot of people that have gone through education with a neurodiversity issue that's not diagnosed, I was literally treated like I was an idiot. I was put in the lowest sets, like special support groups, treated like I couldn't think. When in actual fact, it's just that I had a neurological difference to other people.
Yeah.
And that's upsetting, because it teaches you that you're no good. I remember, like, vividly as a kid being sat down at 6 trying to spell something and being completely unable to write it and crying because I couldn't do it, and having your parents try and encourage you doesn't make a difference, because you know in the day after you're going to have to go in and have the teacher shout at you if you're not doing a good job. So a lot of people that have come through education like this have got not a chip on the shoulder, because it isn't like that. It's just there's just a lack of awareness of their own strengths.
Yeah.
That's a massive trauma,
Yeah.
isn't it, really? I really just think about it. I mean, that's hard to just without speaking about it, without talking to somebody professional and
Yeah.
being able to kind of really explore that, to think back and think of your childhood school experience and that be a dominating scene is...
But this is the experience of so many.
Oh, yeah.
To the point where, especially in people with ADHD, there's something called acute rejection dysphoria, which is where they're looking, and because they observe and experience the world like intensely and with great focus, if they perceive like negative body language or something that they think means that they're not living up to an expectation, it can be literally catastrophic. And that's not something I experienced because it is a unique phenomenon to people with ADHD. But a lot of research has been done to say that might actually be because of the way that they're treated through the education system. So what you're just saying about trauma, absolutely. And it isn't traumatic the way that it used to be, because, for example, like now there are assessments done at nursery even, like there's help available. But you asked why self-esteem, and that's why, because you have to do a lot of unpacking of what actually is me not being able to do it because of a neurological issue, and what's me not being able to do it because I'm not good enough.
Mm-hmm. That's amazing. No, seriously, thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Tom. I've sat here and just been like, I could just keep talking, Tom. I could sit here and listen to just... I love your views on things. I love how clearly you communicate your ideas. You've been absolutely fascinating to have here. So thank you very much for giving us your time.
No, thanks for having me. I
This
appreciate
is a
it.
special one. It's great to have both my BFFs on either side. But yeah, thank you, fam, so much for listening. It's been amazing.
Yeah,
and
just give us a share. Give Tom a share and shout out as well. You know, it's a huge thing for our guests to come here and talk to us. And you know, if you can just give him a little bit of a shout out on Instagram, it's really appreciated. And you know, thank you again, Tom, for giving us your time. We've loved it. Loved having you here. So thank you.
It's been my pleasure. Honestly, thanks for having me. And yeah, I can't wait to listen to the next one.
Great stuff. Amazing.
Woo! Just on the edge. I could see it flashing.
Yeah.
Sorry.